And good evening and welcome to the Mahtab Aziz Celebrity Lawyer Show. We have as our guests today, we have a local community leader, Mr. Mahmood Khan. Good evening, Mr. Khan. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for having me on the show.
That's good. Thank you for taking the time out. And also we have Mr. Nathaniel Peat, who is the, let's pronounce your surname correctly, Nathaniel. It is Peat, yeah?
That's right, yes, Nathaniel Peat.
Oh, that's good. Well, good to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us. And we are addressing a very serious issue of knife crime. I think I'll just start off with Mr. Khan because he is, in fact, from that very area where the tragic death of Hussein Chowdhury happened last week. So we just start off with Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan, can you tell us the general feeling of the local community in Walthamstow at the moment?
Mahtab, is this whole incident has affected the entire community. The young lad was a very bright, and he had a bright future. He's a well-disciplined child. He was basically what we could say the parents were proud of him. His friends were proud of him. And he was one of those children, a young adult who was actually leading a kind of exemplary life, and all his friends actually followed him. He had a great influence on most of his friends, and he always actually invited them to the right path. He invited them to come to the prayer, come to the mosque, and he was a regular. Even the morning that on the evening that he died, that morning he actually early in the morning, 5 o'clock, he went for the Fajr prayers in the morning, and he was a regular. He was a regular at that mosque. Right, the mosque was right opposite his house. So the whole community had felt this pain. It's unimaginable because there is no reason behind this. Yeah. And everybody, whoever hears this, it saddens them, and especially me and my family and my children, we are seriously affected by this because he was a very close friend of my son. And I have known him since his childhood. He used to come to our house, and my child went to school with him. So we were very close to him. When we heard this, even now, I still haven't recovered from this incident. It has badly affected me mentally. Even today, when I went to his funeral, the feeling was, tears were in my eyes.
Yes.
I really, at the time of his funeral, I couldn't really stop crying because each time I was seeing that, last week, this time, this young man was making all the plans for future. He was thinking he's going to do this, he's going to do that. And here we are, on his prayer, on his funeral.
Right. No, thank you very much for that. Mr. Khan is very descriptive of what the current feeling is in the local community, where the young man unfortunately died. And Nathaniel, I mean, that's something probably you've come across many times. Tragic circumstances, communities in a state of shock, and having difficulty dealing with these things that come upon the doorstep. Is this an aspect that the safety box, your organization, does it actually address this issue in any way when you come to try to tackle knife crime?
Absolutely. I mean, this has plagued society for such a long time. I mean, for the last 20 years, you've seen it rise in terms of knife crime. And I too really am so deeply wounded by hearing of this murder of this young man trying to just protect himself and his mother, and in a home whereby just as a young entrepreneur trying to rise to do something that is positive. Many lives like this are just ruined as a result of this. And, so the safety box is driven with as much passion and drive to actually change this, because it's not necessarily knives and guns that kill people. It's mindsets. Yeah. Because when the mind is not right, where they don't have a belief system that is above themselves, or where they do not have a belief or a moral standing for within themselves, where they're coming maybe from a life of poverty and just lack of role models in their life. They are destroyed as a result of various pressures from the systematic racism that exists, from the systematic problems that happens in communities that are coming from overseas into the UK, where we find these problems. These issues are not pinned to a particular racial group, because youth violence is a problem with young people, with youth generally, and it covers and it impacts so many lives. So one of the key things we aim to do is actually to change the mindset with early intervention tactics, working with primary school children, and also it is both sides, because it is working with the young people that are at risk of offending, but it's also safeguarding the young peoples that are at risk of becoming a victim. And so we do it in very practical ways in teaching young people how to defend against knives. That is defensive tactics against the weapons, as well as avoidance, prevention, in addition to running sessions whereby we have ex-offenders that can speak to this, also parents that have lost their children as a result of knife crime, to actually talk to these young people. And the work which we've put in, approaching it from a public health model, has achieved high rates of violence reduction. For example, in one of the most violent youth prisons in the country in 2012 and 2013, where they had gang group violence, which was in the prisons, we reduced the level of violence by 95% in a year. That has never been achieved in a British prison before. And with the same methodology, we are trying to take this to the streets and replicate this across schools, and commission directly through the Metropolitan Police, as well as Home Office and MOPAC as well, to do this type of intervention work with young people, so we can safeguard our young people, and also that we can stop the negative spiral that leads to these horrible incidents of deaths within our community.
So, and of course, your organisation is a multi-award-winning organisation, and it's obviously you've got a successful formula there, and that's very good to see. Mr. Khan, can you, in terms of you're the legal profession yourself. I mean, you must have come across youth, disenfranchised youth who have personal problems in their lives. How much of a problem is this for youth, that they have these personal problems, and therefore how does this precipitate in them turning violent?
Well, Bobby, it's a serious concern. It says, even there are times when I go to the police station and represent a young lad who's actually just stabbed someone in the chest or in the head, and when you talk to them, the way they talk, as if they do not realize that if you're going to stab someone in the chest or in the head, that person will die. This is it's really shocking and horrifying thought that these children have been brought up, which school they've been brought up, what kind of teaching they have. Why do they not realize that that kind of act will murder someone, and they're going to get in a serious trouble? It seems that there's no realization of this. That is the most worrying part of it. When I often when I see these young lads in a police station, when I come out, my mind actually is thinking that what kind of society we are living in, why we have failed in our society to teach these young people that if you stab someone in the head or in the chest, they will die. Why don't they have that realization? Why don't they understand that when that person will die, their own life will be ruined forever, their family life will be ruined forever, the victims obviously will, if he dies, even if he doesn't die, his entire life will be affected seriously, his family will be affected seriously. They do not have this thought in their heads, and which is this part is far more worrying to me than anything else, because not having that realization in them, that means somewhere either our education system is lacking, or the entire society that we are living in, we are not teaching these people, because obviously they need to be taught. They need to know the value of life. They're too young to learn themselves. We are the one. I mean, in example for Hussein's situation, I think we have failed to protect him as a society, as a community. I personally, at times, since this happened, I think, I'm personally responsible for this, because I live in the local society, in the local area, and, it seems like that we have failed to, control these kind of incidents, control these youngsters, and teach them, and, what life is all about. And I'm really happy my learned friend has said that they're doing hard work. That's amazing. Then we need to do that. I think there needs to be more organizations like that. In fact, our own community should learn from this incident, and we need to come out. We need to reach to our children, these youngsters, and let them know, how to protect themselves, and how to stay away from these kind of crimes. Is very, very important. And obviously, I don't want to put a finger to the police and say, they, to some extent they have failed to control these youngsters, because if you look at other, for example, if you're driving without insurance, a car, you'll be scared that the police will stop you. Here we are, youngsters carrying butcher's knife. These knives are not ordinary knives. And they're walking around in the streets without any fear in their head that they will be stopped and they could actually go to prison.
Yes.
Obviously, something is wrong here. Either the police is not doing their job, because if they're doing their job, then these people would be scared. Just like, driving a car without insurance, you can't move in London without insurance. So how come the youngsters are walking around with a butcher's knife in London without any fear that they're going to be arrested?
Sure. Oh, you mentioned quite a few valid points there. I mean, certainly there is a sense of powerlessness that the community feels, that they are powerless to actually do anything about this burgeoning knife crime. And of course, we go back to a point that Nathaniel mentioned earlier on, that from his experience, it seems that these youths who put up in these scenarios, they're lacking a belief system. They're lacking a system that tells them what's from right from wrong. And the thing is, how do we address this? Because I noticed that in society these days, there's been this sort of trend, shall we say, to not be moralistic, to not to even, in fact, go about telling youngsters what's right or wrong. How do you address that, Nathaniel? How do we address that point?
Well, I think there's so many different things within this to unpick. Firstly, I just want to address what my dear friend has actually mentioned in terms of the lack of understanding of what it means to carry a knife. Many of the young people may carry the knives not with the intention to actually use it, but what happens is adrenaline is secreted into their blood system. It consequently has an impact on the mind. The mind then will act in a very violent way if they have been programmed a certain way. Now, so this cannot be blamed on a particular group, because it's a multi-complex problem. And you have to address things of inequality. We've got to address things about what's taught in school. You have to talk about parents that are raising children that are children themselves, teenage parenting, whereby the morals and the standard of the teenager that's having that child now is not put into that young woman or that young man. And what happens is the absent fathers that are in the society, there is a complete breakdown in terms of the removal of certain morals and systems that have been an underpinning factor to schools and many societies, in fact, where ideas and concepts and political correctness somewhat has contributed to this, in terms of people being frightened then to tell a child off, or being frightened to actually, where you have that community policing, where in times of old the society would frown against it. Again, prison is not a deterrent for many young people. In fact, it's almost like getting your stripes up if you go to prison. It's almost like getting your stripes up if you can serve a sentence in prison. In fact, it is not a deterrent. And so there needs to be some other types of methodologies, because even when we're talking about stop and search is not a proactive way of stopping knife crime again. There are statistics which will confirm that. But when we're talking about early intervention, we're talking about teaching young people about banking, teaching them about finance in the schools. We're talking about teaching them about morals and conflict resolution in school, not just the traditional subjects, but also things that are going to help them to integrate into society better as better citizens. And so it is a multi-complex problem that we have to really raise the self-esteem, because when you've got a young person that does not have high self-esteem, does not have good self-worth, that has been told constantly that they're terrible or bad and have never been appreciated by anyone, it is very easy then for someone to groom them into a process. And so when they're groomed, they will say, all right, listen, I'll speak in a colloquial language for you to understand it. Yo, Mayu, what you saying? Come over here, fam. Like, let me take this thing and go and carry it down the road. Go and carry it down the road. And that's the colloquial talk, of course. So then when they would then go on their bike from primary school, they'll be paid, let's say, 20 or 30 pounds to go and carry that. They immediately are brought into the system of money and cash flow. Now, if you're a young person that is coming from a poor family with maybe 3, siblings and one single mother that's going and working 2 jobs, and there's nobody to give you that guidance, you don't have money, but you desire the same things your friends are getting, which is trainers or new games or whatever, and you've got a drug dealer now that is actually saying, go and take this on your bike down the road, go and move it from Waltham Forest up to somewhere else, and they're on their bike and the police are not going to stop them. That young person's getting paid £100. And you accelerate this now 2 or 3 years before you know it, that young person is now carrying a knife because it's part of the equipment that he needs to have or she needs to have in order for them to do their drug dealing or in order for them to do their drug trafficking. And so it's a really multi-complex problem that we are trying to tackle it at every level, from primary school to secondary school to working in the prisons to working with guys that are coming out of prisons to stop the reoffending.
Right. Thank you very much. That was very clear in terms of some of the issues that can lead to knife crime. So in terms of the criteria that actually fuels knife crime, how do you go about pinpointing those? Because you have different societies, you have different communities, and this is a sort of like almost like a pandemic. It doesn't affect any one community, it affects everyone. So there must be different issues here that fuel actual knife crime. You mentioned having disadvantaged societies because of the financial situation of the parents, or there may be single parents or that sort of thing. So there isn't actually just one main sort of thing that actually fuels knife crime. It's a variety of them, and it all depends on the community. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I would say that, when you're looking at inner city communities and suburbs whereby you've got deprivation, you've got a higher level of crime, But if we've got to really unpick this on another level, because when they're doing county lines, what areas are they going to? When they do a county line, are they going to a deprived area, or are they going to an area in Hertfordshire, or maybe further out in Bedfordshire, where there is a different type of community where knife crime might be the problem there, but in fact now they're trafficking the drugs. So there's 2 sides to this that has to be unpicked. There is the side that is buying and purchasing, and also the side on the ground in the grassroots. So it is as I said, it's a multi-complex problem. When we're talking about gun crime, there is a higher level of criminal activity happening. How do the guns get into the UK? Where are they coming from? And so how does that get into the community? And so there is it's a multi-level problem. Now, if we begin to invest back into youth centers, we begin to increase the amount of youth activities that are available for young people. We provide youth basically that might be dyspraxic or dyslexic and not engaging in the curriculum and think that they're not good within the system in a school that is not equipped to do that, simply because they're in a socially deprived area, is not equipped to help that pupil. They think they're dumb, and so what they do is they play up and they fall into a particular way, or they might have a learning difficulty where the alternative education is not factored into their school. This is where we have a problem. This is where we get a fall off, where a young person's in poverty and they cannot see the connection between their maths GCSE to how they're going to feed their home, where they're coming to school with clothes that are tatty and got holes in it. We're talking about poverty, and this is now a national problem. We need to get young people to work. The amount of youth that basically graduate from university and they get law degrees and they can't even get a job in law, or you have another one that's done engineering, they can't even get a job in engineering. You know, it is providing opportunities for young people. And so there's amazing charities like the EY Foundation that is helping young people to get into work. There are amazing organizations, UK Youth, which is helping to support other, people on the ground, youth workers and so forth. There's organizations that are trying to support, but then it's about the community really banding together. Because when one person comes together, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, and we create this fist. For those of you that were on Facebook can see my fist. For those people watching on YouTube, you can see my fist. When we work together, we have power. That means the local imams, that means the local pastors, that means the local reverends, the local people that are running the various different community groups and leadership. You're all working together, because by doing that, you will release intelligence. Because in the mosque, the young person might be talking about something that is happening, or in the church, they might be talking about something that's happening, or in the community group, they might be talking, and then you've got a cousin, and this intelligence is feeding back in to the community. The community now then will talk to the young person. And so this is where you're talking about a community now taking charge, because the police are always going to be reactive, not preventative. However, when we can empower the community to get it from a lower level, where we are helping the primary school children and we're assisting with each other by talking to each other and communicating, then hopefully we'll begin to create some changes where business owners can create enterprise opportunities and apprenticeship opportunities to help the young people with jobs and income, and to steer them away with boxing classes or martial art classes or whatever they're going to be doing. This is a way in which you can help a young person. You see, if you take something away from a young person that they love doing, guess what? They're going to find something else. And if you do not plug that void with something, they may end up seeking the glory of the street and pick up a knife, either from the perspective of protection or from the perspective of harassing and trying to use it as a weapon to steal, like in this incident where this young man's life has been torn from his mother. I cannot even express my deep sympathy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I think that was a very logical framework that you sort of established there of how we may go about trying to solve this great problem. Sorry, Mahmood, we lost you for a little while. You're back with us now. So we're going to go for a short break now, and we'll be back in very shortly. So stay where you are, and we'll speak again soon.
This is Aisha. Her father died in an accident at a very young age. She lives with her mother and siblings. There are millions like Aisha who do not have access to the very basics of life, resulting in her and many others not being able to attend school. Through Minhaj Welfare Foundation, your charity is dedicated towards supporting the full needs of orphans and needy children around the world. Donate today. Call us now, 0300 30 30 777, or visit us on minhajwelfare.org.
Here at Duncan Lewis Solicitors, we specialize in immigration and family law. We have a proven track record of successful applicants who we've helped secure permanent residency for. From spouse visas to seeking asylum, our expert advisors will assist you throughout the whole application process. We offer a free no obligation consultation, so call us now on 0208 432 3350. That's 0208 432 3350, or visit us at 298 Romford Road, London, E79HD.
Kebabish Original, one of the biggest names in the restaurant trade. Visit your local KO to experience the thrill of the grill and the most authentic Pakistani cuisine. From our kebabs to our curries, and from our mixed platters to our peri-peri, our chefs prepare your food in front of you while you wait. KO is now offering franchise opportunities. To take advantage of our proven and successful business model, contact us on 0208 446 7779 or visit kebabishoriginal.co.uk.
Super Best Meze Grill, the Turkish restaurant where all our food is prepared to perfection. Our mixed grill family platters include lamb shish, chicken shish, Adana kebab, lamb ribs, chicken doner, chicken wings and lamb chops, and all are served with rice, salad, along with a selection of our cold mezes. To see our full menu, go to superbestmezegrill.co.uk. For the perfect dining setting, visit us now at 21 to 23 Broadway, Stratford, E15 4B, or call 0208 555 3335. Super Best Meze Grill.
Looking to get your finances in order? MR Accountants has you covered. We provide a full range of accountancy and taxation services, including annual and management accounts, self-assessment tax returns, VAT, bookkeeping, and payroll services. We ensure you're kept up to date with the latest legislation, and our client-focused approach helps us plan your business finances from savings to investments. We are MR Accountants. Visit our website at mraccountants.com or call us on 0203 432 9138.
If you want to advertise your business on Revive FM, then visit www.revivefm.co.uk or contact our sales team now on 07944 565616. That's 07944 565616. Advertise with Revive FM.
Revive FM
94.0. On the radio.
On your mobile.
And online.
And welcome back to the Mahtab Aziz Celebrity Lawyer Show. Today we have Nathaniel Peat, CEO of the organization Safety Box. And we have Mr. Mahmood Khan, who is a barrister and who has dealt, well, in fact, who comes from the same community where, unfortunately, young Hussein Chowdhury, unfortunately, tragically died last week as a result of knife crime. We were talking about the causes of knife crime and the possible remedies. And Nathaniel went through a very sort of logical framework that could assist in reducing knife crime. And one of the things that he mentioned was a sort of a cohesive attempt by different elements of the community, such as imams, other youth workers, other people involved in youth organizations, and for a concerted effort to try and perhaps put youth back into a framework where they value themselves again, because there's just too much disparity in terms of resources, in terms of how education is taught to youth. So there's a variety of issues, a variety of problems there. So it's a complex matter and not an easy one to address. If I could just start again with Mahmood, you are obviously a barrister. Obviously, you come across people who've been through the prison system, and what are the effects of prison? I know Nathaniel has actually addressed that issue, and he has said that, look, prison is not the answer. In terms of your dealings with people that have come out of prison, what's the effect of prison on people that have been found guilty of criminal offences?
That in reality, I don't think so. Actually, the purpose, it doesn't serve the purpose. Problem is that the prison doesn't serve the purpose. In fact, as my learned friend mentioned, that increases their status in a criminal world. Actually, once they come to go into the prison, come out, they actually learn more tricks. They get to know people who are seriously involved in crime, and then they become actually a target. These youngsters who go in there, they become a target for them, and they actually use them. Then this whole thing, the system needs to be looked at again. As teaching is the most important thing. You have to teach. Everybody has to do their job. First thing, it starts from your home, your mom and dad. Their father and mother, they are the one who need to let their children know the value of life. That's the first thing. You see, one of my learners said that if they are deprived of something, and then they actually end up going into doing things which are wrong. Now, this is something that they need to be taught at an early age from their parents, from their school. Okay, fine. If you do not have something, that doesn't mean that you start trying to obtain that by force, by wrong means. Yeah, that won't help them. It will only create problems from that. It will actually, shorten their life. I mean, they're going to end up in dangerous situations, or maybe behind bar, and then the entire life will be totally ruined. You're not going to achieve nothing. All they're going to achieve is a materialistic advantage, momentary materialistic advantage. And that materialistic momentary advantage is not going to help and solve their life or their problems. There is neglect in the society. We need to address all this. But at the same time, everybody has to do their job. For example, the police has to do their job as well. They're there for a certain purpose, and they at the moment, in my opinion, something it needs to be changed in order how we are policing. We are streeting. The police is controlling the street, because then East London at the moment is a very dangerous place to be. Every second day, someone is being stopped. And they have, with the knife at their throat, their mobile is taken, money is taken, the car is taken, some, really things of no real value. But this is happening. But what I don't understand, how these youngsters have no fear of the police or any moral understanding or value. Why? There's something is something's gone wrong. I mean, there's a lot of these the media to some extent, or this social media is also a big player in this. We need to look into this as well, because what they've been playing since the childhood, like he said, once they got some kind of weapon in their hand, when it comes to a situation, their mind triggers off a violence, and that violence actually comes from the games they've been playing. As a youngsters, with the so many things they've been, sometimes you do not realize, but it actually slowly, actually systematically, it goes into your mind. And when you are in a certain situation, you may react without even you realizing that you're going to react in this certain way. So the whole, we need to look, because let's take example. But when we were, the teenagers, in the 80s and the 90s, we didn't have this kind of problems. Because the social media wasn't there. We were actually out and about, playing on the fields, doing a lot of activities, physical activities. Whereas today's youngster, he hardly goes out of his house. He's got all these social media, he's got all these games, he's playing around. And I'm sure psychologically these things are actually affecting their mind. We need to look at these causes, why we are, why this is happening. And obviously, as I say, it's a complicated issue. It's not a simple issue. It needs to be properly addressed. Because we are at the stage, if we don't address it now, it will get even worse.
Yes, those are very valid points. Very valid points. We've in fact been joined by Patrick Green, who is the CEO of the Ben Kinsella Trust. Patrick, can you hear us? Are you? I think we need to add you on. I'll just get one of my colleagues. We need to add Patrick on, please. Just 1 second. There you go, Patrick.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello, everybody.
Very good of you to join us. We have been discussing. Nathaniel Peat is with us, of the CEO of Safety Box. We've got, you just heard Mr. Mahmood Khan, who's a barrister and practices in youth crime. Now, it's a complex issue. That's been established. It is a complex issue. It's nothing that's going to be resolved, overnight or in a very short space of time. There needs to be a concerted, a very comprehensive solution to this. I know that obviously the Ben Kinsella was a young lad of 16 back in 2008 who tragically, unfortunately, died having had an altercation with a group of other youths. How have things moved on since 2008, Patrick?
Well, not very well, I think, is the answer to that. I think that's the observation. As you say, Ben was murdered in an unprovoked attack back in 2008. He was just coming home with friends, having celebrated, just finishing his GCSEs. He was what we classically say was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and was murdered by 3 individuals who clearly just went out to cause harm that evening, and Ben was the first boy they got hold of. I think to answer your question, I'd start at that point in 2008, because when we set up the trust in October 2008, we didn't know an awful lot about this subject. We were asking the same questions that you've been asking in this program about why is this happening? Why are so many young, talented, beautiful lives being taken by this crime? Why is it happening? Why aren't we doing more to stop it? And we spent the first 3 years of our existence, Ben's sister, particularly Brooke, who some of you and listeners may remember from her time in EastEnders, took time out of acting to visit lots of organizations who were working in this area to try and find out what they were doing, what was working well, where the government were in all this, and why wasn't more being done to stop this. And Brooke went to the US to do some program in the US on gun crime and teenagers, and brought some of the learning from the US back in 2011. So we set up the educational part of the Ben Kinsella Trust in 2011 to start to educate young people around the dangers of knife crime. And what we wanted to do, we talked to lots of young people about the subject at the time. And what they told us very clearly was they wanted us to talk to them about their lives and how it affects them. They didn't want somebody standing up that they didn't know just telling them not to carry a knife. This had to reflect on their lives, their experiences. Otherwise, it didn't have much value. So we created what we call an exhibition. It's probably not an exhibition as such. It's a series of rooms which young people travel through. It's based on choice and consequences. They make a decision, they walk through a door. The result of that decision is waiting for them. They travel through a series of doors. And basically, they start to understand that having made what they think is an inconsequential decision about doing something can lead to something quite terrible at the end. And lots of young people halfway through our workshop start saying, that wasn't what I thought was going to happen when I made that decision earlier on. But the point I want to make, and that's the kind of work that we do with young people, the point I wanted to make around knife crime is 13 years on, we've seen knife crime increase dramatically since 2014. It fell a bit in the early 2010 to 2014, but it's up dramatically since 2014. And what we've seen in terms of the narrative around knife crime is we always speak about it, whether it's in the press or any types of, or the media. It's always spoken about as record numbers. It's always spoken about that it's something wrong with the criminal justice system that needs fixing. There's something wrong with education, that there's something that needs to be fixed, and it's a short-term fix that needs to be done. So most of the funding that's coming to support knife crime has only ever come on really short-term promises, so 2 to 3 years. 13 years after Ben's death, knife crime is worse than it was in 2011. And we're failing to understand that if we want to tackle this problem, it's a generational problem. It has been with us 13 years ago. It was with us 13 years before. And if we're not careful, it'll still be with us in 13 years' time. And we're going to borrow a quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who once said, there comes a time when you've got to stop pulling people out of the water and go upstream to find out why they're falling in. All our efforts, police, government, society, has been about pulling people out of the water through the criminal justice system, etc. For the work that that we do, and I think many others and kind of the same, we need to do far more to try and stop people falling in much earlier, and that's something that needs to be funded for a generation. It goes beyond the terms of any political term of office, a mayor, a prime minister, and this is something politicians have to get together to tackle and put in a strategy that lasts a significant length of time. And I think then and only then will we start to see an end to this horrendous problem.
Right. So catch them early policy.
Yes, yeah. Catch up early. Yeah, and I think Mr. Khan, when I came in the call, was saying much of this about we've got to talk to young people much earlier, and the person who's best placed to talk to young people is the person they trust, whether it's the parent, their brother, their sister, their cousin, the sports coach, the teacher. But somebody in that young person's life is their trusted adult, and they are best placed to have that conversation. And probably we're not having those conversations because adults assume that if a young person is behaving well, there's nothing to worry about. When we don't realize that young people understand more about knife crime or think they understand more about knife crime. And the conversations to have much earlier could do us a big favor in terms of tackling this problem.
That's right. And perhaps the use of perhaps celebrities sometimes does have an effect on you. I mean, you mentioned Brooke Kinsella, obviously being a well-known actress, and sometimes that in itself can I think, assist in some way.
Celebrities have certainly got value in terms of promoting ideas, and we know young people follow celebrities, and we all do, probably in some way or another. But I come back to the point. I think the most important person in a young person's life is the one that they trust, and that may be in the family, it may not be in their family, or in some cases, some of the work that some of the great charities do in terms of mentoring and support puts a trusted adult into a young person's life. And that's so important.
Right. 100%. I mean, I remember when Ben was killed. In fact, I did a GMTV interview with Margaret Mizzen, who lost her son from a glass which slashed the throat. So I remember when Ben was actually murdered, chased down, and just an appalling murder in North London. And everything which has been said, really, I have to replicate. I'm going to touch on credible messengers, and I think what we're talking about here is really, when we're talking about trust, someone that they trust, it's also a credible messenger, because oftentimes the teachers and the sports people or the sports coaches or those people who do not have the expertise to oftentimes help them. Neither are they trauma trained, because a lot of these young people will be suffering with levels of trauma through years and years and years of abuse, perhaps, or even seeing stuff or visualizing things. I noted my friend had actually commented earlier on the things which they're watching and what they're taking in. Again, where young people are taking in content which is inappropriate for them, or listening to language that is inappropriate for their ears. And what happens is this embeds itself into their mind, and so there's trauma which the child is actually dealing with. And so sometimes the parents, sometimes the teachers are not equipped with the required knowledge in order to take them out. And this is where you need a credible messenger. This is someone who has a cognizant understanding of where they're coming from. So whether it be they've been on the road and they understand road language, they can talk to them straight, you get me, I've got a shank out, you know what I mean? Whether they can talk that type of colloquial language with them because they've come from it themselves, right? Or been through the criminal justice system with an experience of going through that. It is those type of credible messengers which have the greatest impact with young people. And then you've got all the peer-to-peer mentorship. So then you've got a young person which is managed to achieve something, that understands the same problems that young person's probably gone through, to then help and to counsel and to mentor them themselves, then is a powerful way where they're perhaps separated by maybe 3 or 4 years. The power of another young person mentoring another young person also can really help to steer them away. But guidance also with inspiration and practical solutions. If they have not got any GCSEs, then let's talk about equipping them with some vocational qualifications that was going to help them to get an income. And I think a lot of these issues can be solved if we take it from a societal a constructive systematic change, reform, right, across the full sector: education, housing, equality, governance. We need a real pivot in the way in which we handle everything, because it is a multi-complex problem. And the more organizations that can get funded, again, the band-aid that has been spoken of is not going to be a solution. A short-lived funding pool of money when it spikes, that's what happens. You get a new government, the lifetime's going up. Okay, we're going to put all of the money into it, loads of money going out. Okay, all right, okay, great. We can create some tangible change for maybe 18 months. But then what happens into 36 months? We're talking about something that can take a decade, because it is societal. It is a problem that we have to really address on all places, from grassroots level right the way up to the top level.
Oh, yes, certainly. And I recall, sorry. Carry on, Patrick. Sorry, do carry on.
No, it was a very short. No, I absolutely fully agree with everything my friend says. Yeah, I mean, Absolutely. Credible messengers, absolutely important. Just my plea would be that we talk to every child, and not just the children that we're concerned about, because from the group that of children that we're not concerned about, therein is the next group of children that we will be worried about. So this is something we should be doing right across the board and talking to every child. But I thought brilliantly put.
That's and I just on the point of credible messages. I mean, I recall a video, a YouTube video. Both of you may have seen it, and it concerned two young black youths who were fighting on the street, and as all of a sudden this chap comes out of nowhere and he sort of tells them to stop, but he speaks to them in a language that they understand. And then they stop fighting, and he takes them both and he just makes them understand that what they're doing is wrong. He said, why are you fighting? He said, these guys around you with the mobile phones, you're just entertainment for them. But he spoke in a language that they understood. And that chap, I've got his name now, but that video went viral because that chap spoke in such a language that they understood, and then they stopped fighting, and then in fact became friends after that. And that young chap, in fact, won an award for that. So very much so, this idea of credible messages is something which has to be, utilized more.
Yeah, the only thing about credible messengers, I mean, we also traveled to the US in Chicago, the Cure Violence model, in terms of assessing, in terms of looking at basically how to, curb violence from a public health perspective. And the danger with this, there's a program which is known as the Violence Interrupter Program, very effective way of actually interrupting violence. How it's just using credible messengers, ex-convicts that have once basically been violent themselves through gang violence or whatever, to then try to interrupt youth violence. The problem with it is that the inspiration that is required and the elevation that is required, it doesn't seem to be there. So you can get someone who is a credible messenger that's, let's say, come out of prison, but if they themselves haven't built themselves out of the community and actually elevated to either a really good job or basically earning a higher salary or just doing something, the ambition then for the child to actually really then do that pivot to say, look, I can actually do this, or I can actually achieve, is missing. And so this is the importance of actually having not only the credibility of being cognizant of the reality of what it's like growing up in an inner city community, or maybe going into a life of crime or being involved in a gang, but it's also elevating from that to achieve success and to consistently show that they're successful in driving that car that they're driving or wearing the clothes that they're wearing with legitimate money and by legitimate means, because this is the mindset that you're struggling to change, this mindset with some of these young people, because they just don't believe that a regular job can pay them when they're in the school and they're saying to the teacher, well, I can earn more than I can go OT. OT means out of town. That means a county line. I can earn £200 from going out of town, right? Yeah. And that or I can earn £1,000. We've worked with young people whereby we've gone to go and talk to the parents, and the parents don't want to talk to us. Do you know why? Because the child is paying the mortgage. This is the level, right, that we have got to really start to look at in terms of how we teach in schools, what opportunities we're given to young people that perhaps are not academically posed to achieve great success in school, but an alternative subject, an apprenticeship scheme perhaps, where they can build their skill sets and actually earn money or start a business, and you invest and incubate that as opposed to just leaving them. But all of this requires money. It requires cash injection to keep these enterprises working, to keep the youth centers opened, and to help young people.
That's very, very informative and very credible options that you presented there, Nathaniel. We're fast running out of time, so I'm just going to give 60 seconds to Patrick and Mahmood Khan, just to sort of finish off. Your last thoughts, please. 60 seconds before the program finishes. So we start with Mahmood Khan.
Mahtab, I said earlier, and my learned friend said, since 2011, the knife crime has increased twofold. Right, yeah. So definitely, we need to look at the situation. We need to see why things are, rather than decrease, is increasing. Why this thing, despite the fact that money has been invested and a lot more information and experience has been gained from the past incidents, but we are the purpose of or reducing this crime. Something is definitely is wrong, and we need to. Everybody needs to look at it. And perhaps everybody working together maybe is a way of solving this issue, because you don't want this to increase any further. Now in East London, you're not safe in your home. I mean, how worse can you get? Daylight on a main road. It's a busy road, and it's a daylight, and you're at your home. The whole family is there. Yes. If you're not safe in that your home, then things getting worse than that. I mean,
Yes. No. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Mahmood Khan.
Do their duty, act upon it, and make sure that we achieve some kind of purpose where we can reduce these kind of knife crime. Perhaps make a knife unlawful altogether. Nobody can carry, nobody can sell the knife. That may be one of the solutions. Let's just put a ban on this. You can't sell a knife, in a shop. Just simply ban it.
The issue is that they can pull it out of the kitchen drawer. That's it. So it's just parent diligence, really, I think, as well. But I would just say, just keep your young people safe. Watch what they're bringing into the house. If they're wearing expensive clothes and stuff like that, question that. Just look at access stuff online. If you spot anything, go to fearless.org and check them out. But I'll hand over to Patrick because I know he's facing it.
Patrick, I do appreciate you hang on there for a bit longer than
Not at all. I'm going to borrow from Nathaniel. The Band-Aid. We have got to stop thinking of this as a quick fix solution. We've got to accept that we have a problem. We've got to accept that this problem is going to take a generation to resolve, and we've got to invest appropriately in doing that. Then and only then will we start to make a difference.
Right. Okay. That's very logical suggestion there. And once again, thank you to all my guests: Barrister Mahmood Khan, Nathaniel Peat, CEO of Safety Box, Patrick Gray, CEO of the Ben Kinsella Trust. You've all contributed really well, and I'm sure that listeners would have had a very informative hour listening to yourselves. That's it for today for the Mahtab Aziz Celebrity Lawyer Show. So I'll see you hopefully next week, Tuesday. And so I'm signing off on the Revive FM 94.0. Thank you and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you know?